Good morning, everyone. Make sure that we are on.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay, seem to be small in numbers right now, but I mean, I guess it's a couple minutes shy of 10 o'clock. I put in the chat that we are going to focus on at least a part of lesson 9. I don't know that it seems all of these lessons in the book appear to be a little short, but they do cover quite a bit of material. We will probably only get as far as talking about the reports, and because we do want to spend some time this morning going over your questions and comments on the 3 assignments and on the terrible quiz we had. It was a terror for everyone. So we can start by, and because I'm starting to forget what anyone looks like, today I'm going to ask that you, I should have said this ahead of time. I am going to ask that you, at least one time when you first say something, that you do a small video of yourself, even if it's for 2 minutes, while we deliberating today. So let's start with the I guess the topic of conversation, which was quiz 5. Can everyone hear my fan? I have a fan on. Can you hear it?
I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay. Okay, that's better. I'm realizing it's actually disturbing me. Okay, so yeah, quiz 5. I sent a synopsis of that quiz in terms of the grades. I was not surprised. I was a little surprised. I think you had 2 persons that got 55%. I thought everyone would get much less than that. So kudos to those 2 persons, but it was pretty much everyone got the same grades on the quiz. As you can see, it was a 15-point spread between the bottom and the top grades. So everyone had the same issue, which I expected. Now, one of the points of that quiz, let me backtrack a little bit. Your final certification exam will be these questions that you are getting in the quizzes. The exact same questions will appear. In fact, for the rest of the time that we're together, we're going to be doing quite a bit of quizzes, because those same questions are the questions that you're going to you will encounter on the final. And one of the things I will do, the quizzes are currently set to sort of, you can only do it once and you have to do it in a particular time. I'm going to reissue all of the quizzes so that they're available to you to do as many times as you would like. I'm going to try and get that done. To the ones we've done already, I'll do those today. And just to put you on alert, you're going to get a number of quizzes, because those are the questions that are going to be on the final. No other questions but the ones that you've encountered before. The point is that you need to learn the material and the area to be able to do these quizzes. I anticipate that all of you who do that, by the time you get to take that final, bearing in mind that you would have the same questions, that you'd be able to breeze through it and do very well. It's just my thing. But the journey through it is not superficial. So going back to why that quiz was a little difficult. It was a little difficult because it kind of teaches you, when you're doing certification exams, that you need to understand the context of the exam. It's not simply about flying by the seat of your pants and what you know. It's about having a sense of what the examiners want you to be able to express. And I know some of us on the call have done certification exams before, and they can really give you a slap across the head, because you can know all sorts of stuff, but if you don't answer things the way they want it answered, and get used to answering questions the way they want it answered, your wealth of knowledge you end up being frustrated. Mm-hmm. So that quiz is an example of, and I know that you would have gotten a return on what the correct answers were. So the discussion that we can have this morning is anybody's take on how they thought that quiz was, what could have been done for that quiz to be not easier, but better, whatever that word means. So let's start with that. What was the challenges that you had, and express the frustrations you had with doing that quiz?
Marjorie.
Yeah, Marjorie, then Blair. Marjorie, then Blair.
Good morning, everybody. I hope we've all come back from that crazy quiz. For me, it was the ambiguity of the question. As you know, we spoke for a couple minutes on this, Ian, especially about that question about the security deposit, where I felt like that was a trick question because the answer.
A lot of them were
Yes.
so-called trick questions.
Right. So, I mean, now that I know it, it's kind of different now, but let's look ahead for something similar. So with where it says a security deposit is one of the, what was the question? The security deposit.
Let's read the exact question so we
Okay.
can.
All right.
So
And
they
then
can
I
find.
have the answer that I thought it should have been. And then it said, no, that's not the answer.
Okay, yeah, it's the one that says, it's one of those, tenants have a right to, that's all it says.
Yes,
Tenants have a right to,
correct.
and it's a right to fair treatment, to live undisturbed, which were both correct. They have a right to behave in any manner, which is not true. No one has a right to behave in any manner.
No, absolutely not.
It feels
Yeah.
like you should. I remember now, the key here is tenants. So it's this tenants within the realm of someone renting a place. The one that Marjorie is talking about that is a bit contentious is they have a right to the security deposit. And I'm going to
Remember, I don't dispute that. I don't dispute that they have the right to the safety deposit. It's the part that says, however, that is the part that made it ambiguous for me.
What's the however?
The however is in the event that the deposit is kept due to damage, which is the purpose of the deposit in the first place, due to any damage incurred by said tenant. However, if there is no damage and there's no need to keep the funds, the deposit, then it will be returned to the tenant.
Okay, so, but you can say that for almost all of these other things. For instance, let's go back to the right to live undisturbed. You have a right to live undisturbed, but the landlord can say, look, I need to come in the apartment to do an inspection.
I suppose you can look at it like that. Then
Yes,
there's still that
so-
credit
so-
part with the
so
72 hours. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you have to sort of, again, about beginning to contextualize the questions and get used to how questions are asked in the environment and what they're looking for.
Right.
That's really what you have to do.
That was 5 points, man. That was 5 points, and just that one half of an answer.
Yeah,
Killed me with 5 points,
that's why this sort of quiz is difficult, because you lose a whole 5 points just by making one little error. So this is not a typical type of what we call this is not a typical test where you say true, false, and you make a good guess and you might get it right. This is one of those things that if you really make an error on these types of things, you get punished for it.
Mhm.
So guessing is not a very helpful thing here. You have to think. And I like to tell people it's better to be able to think than it is to know. Knowledge is, some people like to learn stuff almost like so that they could just spit it back out. But
Like rote memorization.
yeah, I really advise you that it's better for you to practice thinking.
That's what got me in trouble. That's what got me in trouble. You don't know how long I took on that question. I'm sorry that I keep coming back to it. But I sat there, I was like, what are they asking? Wait, oh, this is a trick. I literally said that during the quiz. I was like, this is a trick. And there were a couple of them like that.
Yeah.
So I understand what you're saying. I guess not overthink is probably the answer there.
Yeah, you can't overthink. You can't overthink. Anyone else with any other thing that we can discuss about the quiz?
Yeah, I mean, could we go through, I mean, it's a short quiz, right? Could we go through the quiz point by point? Because I mean, okay, regards to the security deposit question, the answer was, it was correct. The tenant does have the right to the security deposit. That was one of the rights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and even if you're looking at the conditional, the proviso saying, well, if this happens and the sky fall down, those are incidentals. But the absolute right is that he has the right to the deposit.
Yeah, I mean, and again, if we're gonna go back to the thing, because this is a rights and responsibility
Right.
quiz, it is important to understand what rights mean. You have a right to freedom of movement.
Okay, absolutely.
That's a constitutional right. You have a right to freedom of movement. But guess what? The police could put up a roadblock and tell you stop.
Right.
You can't. You could probably try to argue that, hey, I ain't stopping because I got a right to go where I feel like going. No, you got you in a roadblock.
Mhm.
So the roadblock doesn't remove your right.
Okay.
The fact that the police is stopping you on the road does not get rid of your constitution. The right is still there,
So there.
but it is being interrupted, but the right doesn't go away. It's the same thing, the security deposit.
Right.
The person has a right to it,
I
but
got you.
there's circumstances where that can be infringed on, but the right still didn't go away.
Right.
Okay.
But there's some things you don't have a right to. So that's how you have to think about it. For instance, you don't have a right to hurt somebody.
No.
That's not a right.
Right.
However,
Right.
if someone's attacking you, you could hurt them
Mhm.
and get away with that. But you don't have an inalienable right to go around hurting people. That's the difference. You do have a right to protect yourself,
Mhm.
which is it's very different from a right to hurt somebody. All right, so we clear on that. Any other questions in the quiz?
What if somebody, yeah, I don't know. If
Oh,
somebody-
you said we're gonna go through them. Let's do that. The first one was, well, unfortunately, the way this thing does this is actually, it actually scrambles the quiz for everyone who does it. So you don't get the questions in the same order. Every time you open it, it scrambles it. So I'm gonna start with the one that I'm looking at because I just opened it and I noticed that it does what it does and it scrambled it. So the very first one here is from the following, select the conditions that should not be in a rental covenant. And those conditions were the tenant cannot leave or enter the demise between the hours of midnight and so forth and so on. In the event the tenant develops a physical disabling condition, the property owner must make adjustments for that. The tenant can pay. The only one that was correct, the only one that should not be the one that you should not have selected was, it says from the following conditions that should not be in a rental covenant. And the ones that shouldn't be there is the one about the tenant cannot leave between the hours of midnight.
Right,
You can't do that to a tenant.
right.
And the reason why that cannot be in a rent, you can put it in a rental covenant. This is another trick about a question like this. You could put anything you want in a rental covenant, anything. However, the law will say the covenant is void if you put anything in the covenant that the law cannot support. Let me say that again. If you put something in an agreement between you and somebody else that the law in general does not support, it makes the entire contract void. So if you put something like this in a tenancy agreement where you're saying to the tenant that they cannot leave or enter the premises between midnight and 3 o'clock, the law says that people have a right to freedom of movement. So you putting that in the tenant agreement, even if the tenant agrees to it, makes the contract null and void. The second one was in the event of the tenant developing a physical disabling condition, the property. Let's see if I can get this. Okay. In the event the tenant develops a physically disabling condition, the property owner must amend the demised property to facilitate the said disability. The key word in there is must, right? And this is very blanket. This is saying that if you rent a property to someone and say they have a accident and they can no longer walk, but they have a stairwell in the house, they really cannot dictate to the owner that the owner must now put an elevator in the apartment. Everybody with me on that?
What?
Right, it has to be a condition existing at the point of signature then. It can't be a subsequent.
Right, because that's what this is saying. This is saying if the defendant develops a physically disabling condition. So you rented an apartment to someone and somewhere in the relationship, this person develops some disability. This is the second part, said the property owner must amend the property to facilitate the disability. That's not true. I mean, you would not want that in a rental covenant.
Right.
The property manager, no matter what happens to the tenant, the property manager has to make an adjustment to the property to accommodate the tenant. I mean, that's obviously something that's not going to be in a rental contract. The third one was the tenant can paint the interior walls after giving notice to the property manager and obtaining the property manager's agreement pertaining to color, quality, and application of the paint. The tenant cannot, however, paint a mural of any type on the wall. That sounds like a reasonable thing that you can have as a covenant in a contract, where you're saying to the tenant, yeah, you can paint, but you gotta run that by me because I want to be satisfied that you're not painting the walls black and that you're not using some cheap water paint or some other paint that I won't be able to paint over. And that you're not throwing the paint at the wall, you're actually applying it properly. And then the tenant cannot, however, but under no circumstance am I going to allow you to paint, some mural on the wall. A mural is some wonderful picture that you want painted all over my wall. Under no circumstances am I going to do that. The fourth one is the property owner or property manager will provide reasonable pest control for the demised property. Sounds good. In the event that the tenant encounters or experiences any pest on the property, the tenant must be financially compensated for anxiety, pain, or loss commensurate with the experience. There's no way as a property owner or property manager you'd put that in a covenant. A tenant may want you to put something like that, but you're not gonna put something in that if a tenant sees a cockroach and decides that that is disturbed that day, you have to pay them.
Right.
That's really what that means.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how that went. Then the second one is in the case where there's a pristine pink sand beach, owners will have to compensate the property user if there's an infestation of jellyfish, algae, and seaweed during the property user's stay that renders the beach unsightly and unusable. Now, this is an interesting one because again, this is you rent, this is a point of contention in many cases where people are renting something from someone or leasing something from someone or staying in somebody's place. And the conditions or environment around in the place actually change and the person is unhappy. The renter is unhappy. And you find in many of those cases, the renter saying, hey, you have tourists who come to the Bahamas, go to Atlantis, and it rains every day. And they say they want their money back. Happens almost every week in this country. They want their money back because it rains every day. This is the kind of thing like that. It's like there are accidents or incidences of nature that has caused your tenant to have an unhappy stay. Is that your responsibility? Anybody weigh in on that? Are there any situations where you think it's your responsibility?
No. Unless it's something inside of the home that is caused by, by something like a mold or something like this. But anything outside into the exterior, I would say absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, and Marjorie's point is great because if it rains all day and suddenly, 5 hours into the rainstorm, a little hole opens up in the roof and water starts pouring into the place where the people are. I'm not too sure that you can get away with saying the rain was an act of God because the tenant expects the roof not to open up and let water in, although it didn't start by being opened up, and you can say it opened up because of the weather. The argument is going to be every roof in the Bahamas did not open up and start leaking during that rainstorm. So there's something defective about your roof. So it's not the tenant's business. You need to compensate them.
Yes.
I know in certain instances, people who provide pools with their property, sometimes when, let's say they come down, they rent them up, but they have a property owner or a property manager, and the property manager ensure that the pool is well kept. And then when the renters come down for the weekend or that week, the pool is unusable for whatever reason. Either it's too much bush in it or it's turning green or it wasn't clean that week. I know in that instance, that's more on the property manager than natural cause.
Definitely. Okay, so let's quickly go to the next one that I have here, which is a rental application does not include, boy, and this caused some people some problems. A rental application does not include, and the things that what's here, it has address, which it does include, income, which it does include, identification of employment, which it does include, sexual preference is something that most people got correct because it does not include sexual preference on a rental application. You can have something about whether a person has pets or not on a rental application, age, on a rental application. Political affiliation is not something that you can ask someone about on an application. And emergency contact you can ask them about. I believe I got a note from one person at least who argued that they thought that age was something that you would not put on a rental application because you can't discriminate against persons because of their age. And one of the things I explained to them, that is true. You cannot discriminate against someone because of their age, but I don't know of any application that you fill out that doesn't ask for your age. Knowing someone's age or asking someone their age is not the same thing as discriminating against them because of their age. It's not the same thing. So you can certainly and should certainly ask them their age, because you do not want to rent or get into an agreement with someone who legally cannot be in that agreement. So someone might look like they're 30, but they might be 17. They might look like they're 30. They might have a job or not. But legally, can you get into an agreement with a 17-year-old? Anybody?
Oh, that's correct. That's correct. Absolutely not.
Okay. So yeah, you could sign up your rent, you can sign up your contract, you can sign up your rental agreement, your tenancy agreement, whatever kind of agreement you want with that 17-year-old, but by law, it is not an agreement because they do not have the legal standing to co-sign on their own a legal agreement. So you do need to know people's age. And in fact, what many people do is ask for evidence of age. Sometimes you can't assume.
That's true. Hence identification.
Yeah. And when we get into the thing about the tenants, knowing who your tenant is key, because there's some things that you can get into jeopardy for. If, for instance, we talk about in I think in one of the chapters, if someone's operating a little drug cartel on your property, you could be in trouble. You know, if you notice, there's this incident this week of a boat capsizing and some souls perishing in that thing, and the police arresting 2 persons who were operating that boat. But you also heard the news. Guess who else was arrested? Anybody else who heard the news? Who else was arrested?
The captain?
The captain was arrested because the captain was on the boat. But there's a 3rd person who was arrested. And that 3rd person is the person who owned the boat.
Oh,
Yeah, they announced that they arrested the owner of the boat. That's what happens. If someone's using your property for illegal purposes, you are open to jeopardy for getting locked up. So as a property manager, you want to be careful about that kind of stuff. That people, you do have to have a way of figuring out that you're not dealing with someone who has criminal intent for use of your property, because you could find yourself, in fact, there are cases where property owners have had their property seized by the law because some illegal activity was going on their property. Known or unknown to you is a different issue. You may have to prove or go to court to wiggle out of the fact that, well, I didn't know it was going on, but the law says you're responsible, it's your property. So you're gonna get affected by the fact that you are dealing with a piece of property that you own or you manage, but it's being used for something illegal. The next thing is a property manager can do a decent job without knowing and understanding the specifics of agreements and special conditions. Everyone, particularly, I think, got that right because that is not true. That is certainly not true. You can't do a decent job if you don't know stuff. The next one is a property owner. A property owner considers profitability as a measure of success. Property owner expects an ongoing, robust, and reliable business operation. A property manager needs to accede to failures. A property manager benefits from knowing weaknesses, and a property manager can simultaneously be a property manager, a property user, along with being the property owner. The only one of those that are incorrect, that is incorrect, is that the only one you should not have ticked is that the property manager needs to accede to failure. Nobody should accept failure, because that's what accede to failure means.
Right.
Accept. And so, well, that's it. That's how I think. That's how the cookie crumbles. No one should accept failure. So that was obviously the only one there that should not be there. Anyone had one of those in there that they didn't select, and can tell me why they chose not to select one of those, other than the need to accede to failures.
No,
So everybody got that right? I don't think so.
I got that one right.
Okay,
That's good.
somebody who got that wrong, let me know. Nobody wants to admit to it.
I got it right, so.
If I got that wrong, I don't recall, but that was a tricky question for me. I wasn't quite sure exactly what the interpretation of that was.
Okay, cool. All right, the next one I have here is because the property manager is on the ground, which means on the ground, it's in quote, means the person is there, they're about their business, and they're on the ground. They know and knows best the context and requirements of tenants. The property manager, this is one that a lot of people had stress with, and I understand the stress because this was quite tricky. The property manager should re-engage a vendor that the property owner has fired or prohibited, especially if it is what the property user insists on. Now, there are a couple of things there. The main, one thing is interpreting a question properly. The main tenet of this question is that the property manager should re-engage a vendor that the property owner has fired or prohibited. That's the main statement here. Don't get thrown off by the especially if what the property if it's what the property user insists on. Really, the property manager should not re-engage a vendor that the property owner has fired or prohibited. Someone, I mean, this is something discussed in the book. And then it says, especially if it's what the property user insists on, which is put there to confuse you a bit, because the book does say, you have situations where a user comes on property and they've been, in particular, a property where that's a high-end property that's being rented, and they come and they get a chef every time they come. And the owner, for some odd reason, says, I don't want a chef on my property ever again. But there's a particular user who comes in and says, I can't operate unless that chef is my chef. I think the book alludes to the fact that the property manager has to solve that problem. But the property manager certainly has to solve that problem without attracting the ire of the owner who has fired the person, and without really, really upsetting the tenant who wants the person. So let's have a discussion on that. I'm going to open the floor. Marjorie.
Okay, that one was a problem for me, mainly because of the text. Now, the textbook, that was something we discussed ad nauseum. We really went in on that particular point where we even came into agreement at some point that yes, the tenant or the user, property user, should have access to that vendor, and it would behoove the owner to let them, for the sake of profit and not losing that particular tenant. We went into all of that. So for me, my question is, that's not a real true or false question, because if we're going by the text says, well, yeah, the vendor is prohibited by the owner, but it would be in the owner's best interest to let the property owner, property user have that particular vendor for that moment. So how are we now saying, by all means, no, they cannot. They cannot, it's prohibited, so no circumstances are they to bring them back. So, I mean, generally, I would have said yes to that, but the fact that we went ad nauseum at it made it kind of duplicitous for me.
Okay, anybody else with a view on that before we wrap it up?
Me as well with that question. I felt the same way Marjorie felt, because I looked at that specifically in the text and I felt I got the same interpretation as Marjorie.
Okay, anybody can tell me where it is in the text?
Yes, it's on page
Page
80.
88,
80, right.
under employee reemployment.
There you go, Kevin.
Page 80. Page 80
Yeah.
talks about,
Correct, yes.
okay, let me go to page 80.
Bottom of the page.
Let me read what is here. You sure it's page 80?
88,
No,
88.
88, okay.
88, bottom of the page, employee reemployment.
All right, let's read what it says, and then I'm gonna put it in context with what this question is asking. Employee reemployment. There are some tenants who do not risk staff changes unless they cannot be avoided. Unless they cannot be avoided. Remember that. This is especially the case for tenants that are repeat customers to a property. I've had to request special permission from owners. Everybody heard that? Everybody heard that? They have silence.
Yep, hearing it, hearing it.
I have had to request special permission from owners in instances where tenants adamantly request the services of staff members the owner had terminated. Okay, now is the rub. Even when the owner may have decided that a particular employer or service provider would never again set foot on the property, a tenant's request could motivate the owner's change and the employee's return, at least while the tenant is in occupancy. Now, I wrote this stuff here, so I'm not reading it for the first time. I don't know if it's because you guys are reading it for the first time, you're not reading it the way I read it. But can someone tell me why they see in that the property manager can just carte blanche hire someone who the owner has fired? I don't see it in this.
Coming back.
Well, for me, I thought, I after you've read through the whole thing at that pace and clarity, I think when I read it, I was actually doing the quiz at the time, and I went back to quickly look, and that's when I did not read the entire passage. I kind of did a short review and read to refresh my mind, and I did not continue. So that's where I screwed up myself.
All right, true confessions there. True confessions.
I read it, but I think I was so bent on you
saw what you want to see.
I sure did. And in actuality, as far as examples go, I think that was my because I actually have a real life example of this exact thing where the property owner trumped the tenant but for reemployment. So, okay, I concede the point.
All righty.
Right, Ian, I got lost in the sometimes. Sometimes gave me a way out because I was going back to the text that says what the writer said that she had to do it because the tenant insisted, but that was only a very very most special circumstance. It wasn't really prescriptive. It was just something that she did to satisfy a tenant.
But actually, the text says she had to go back to the owner for permission.
Yeah, right,
That's what we're missing.
right.
Right. right.
Yeah.
And
That was
then-
like a backdoor event, and even sometimes, even the sometimes thing, was wrong because, as you said, she had to go back to the owner, and
Yeah.
sometimes suggests that you have a choice. It's a
Right.
50 deal. It's not.
Right. It suggests that you have a choice. So sometimes it's not right either. So yeah, that's where we talk about these questions where to actually think deeply, because they will just pull you down a little rabbit hole for sure. Okay. So we squared away with that question. That one was a toughie for most persons, for a lot of people. So you're managing a property that has a 4-bedroom residence. That residence sports a kitchenette that supplements its spacious kitchen. Each bedroom has its own full bathroom. You lease the residence to Sylvester Roca for a 3-year term. Months into the lease, you see an opportunity for additional revenue and decide to lease one of the rooms in that residence to Mellow Cello. Your newest arrangement is well within your rights and quite okay, sensible because Sylvester does not need all that space, so it's going to waste, and it's not good for business. Your newest arrangement is not allowable. Your newest arrangement is okay if Sylvester does not have an issue with it, and your newest arrangement is reasonable if you proactively give Sylvester the legally required 72 hours notice. Yeah, this one was tough. The obvious answer is that it's not allowable, but it feels like some of these other answers could be okay too, but that is really the only thing that you can possibly take care. It's not allowable for you to have a contract with someone that says one thing, and then for you to say, oh, I see a little opportunity. Let me go and change this contract. In fact, we discussed this in class a little bit. You're gonna have to get rid of the contract you had in the first place. You're gonna have to get out of that contract because now you are reconfiguring the person's space. So I don't know if anyone has a comment on this as to why they think something else is possibly correct in this one. Anyone?
Nope.
Okay, let's move on.
I
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I said, based on this question,
That's
not a.
Cleophas, do you have a slight visual for me? 2 seconds. I wanted to see people's face today just for a second. Oh, there you go. Good. All right, thanks. Go ahead.
Like I said, based on the question, it's not a textbook question or a textbook answer. So it had more like I guess, based on how you reading it, it was, I know for sure you couldn't just do it like it said because it made sense and it was a waste of space. But I know in certain instances, if you do go to the person and you negotiate, I've seen it before. I don't know if it was legal or not, but I know that you can reason with the tenant and they
Cleophas, turn off your camera. So
I mean, in my experience, I've seen it, so that's why I went.
Cleophas, I missed something there. So say that again. You're saying you've seen something before. Tell us that again.
Yeah, I was saying I have seen where the property manager and the tenant had negotiated to, I guess, share space at some point. So I just went off what I already. I did put not allowable, but I also put it is also okay if Sester doesn't have any issue with it.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, that one was tricky. That was tricky. It is plainly not allowed and certainly not in law, for you to have an agreement for something to go one way and then you just go do something else without that agreement going away and a new agreement being put in place. For sure.
Okay.
And some of the hints in that question was that some of the hints in that question was that, you know, this is something being done for because it's more profitable and so forth and so on. Those are some of the hints. The next question was the effective way for a property manager to act as a representative. Now, this one was very tricky because there are two of the one is obviously correct, which is general agent. But what made this tricky was that the general agent and a universal agent is the same thing. So both of them are actually what you should have ticked.
Okay, yeah.
So that's the trick in this question. Just two different names for the same thing. Now, there's some definitions, by the way, and you should look this stuff up. There's some definitions that actually try to make a slight difference between a general agent and a universal agent, but they're really the same thing. But I noticed in my research that you do run across some definitions that make the universal agent somewhat different, but at the end of the day, it still ends up being the same thing. The country's constitution affords the right of freedom of association. Therefore, a lease agreement cannot control how many guests a property user may have or when. Anyone believes that this is true?
Which one is that?
That a lease agreement, because the Constitution says you have a right to freedom of association, you cannot put in a lease how many guests a property user may have or when. Anyone thought that this was true, that you can't do that? Is this one is, go ahead.
I mean, but we're talking about a private residence. Now, you have the right to associate in the public, but you know, my mind was you're in a private residence, and the owner of a household or private structure can dictate who, I mean, the amount of guests or occupants.
Yeah, and in fact, when we talk about, again, this is where this chapter is on rights. You have to always remember rights are within context. You might have the right to freedom of association, right? But there's also another law that protects people from being in a situation where they can be harmed by the numbers of people who are in a place. So for instance, you have a right to freedom of association, but if an elevator can only take 1,000 pounds, you cannot use that right to pack the elevator with 3,000 pounds of people. If your church only has space for 400 people, y'all may want to associate as much as you like, but if you put 1,000 persons in that church, the law will say you have done something illegal. So that's why you have to always remember what a right to something is. A right to something means you have a right to it, but it doesn't mean that you can do it to somebody's harm. So you can, in an agreement, say, hey, you can have guests, but you can have someone stay in your apartment for, you leasing my apartment from me for 3 years, and you now have 10 guests there for the 3 years.
Right.
I mean, you can't say, oh, these my friends, and you know, I have a right to hang out with who I want. No, you don't. You don't have a right to have 10 people in my apartment for 3 years.
Right.
So that's what this is speaking to. The main concern of the property manager is that the property user is, and this, we can cut to the chase with what the problem people had with this. Again, is reading the question. It is not saying a main concern. It It is saying the main concern. The main concern means one thing.
Right.
One concern of the property manager is that the property user, what? Is a person of integrity? Sure. Does not damage the property? Sure. Is not an unreasonable person? Sure. Values and care for the property? Sure. Has good behavior? Sure. Is capable of communication and cooperation? Sure. But the main concern of you as a property manager or property owner, the main concern is the person's able to pay.
Able to pay.
Yeah, I mean, no nincompoop is gonna rent a place to someone who they know can't pay for it. That makes no sense. That you're gonna take on a tenant where every evidence is that they will not be able to pay you the rent. Makes no sense. That's the first thing you establish. Can this person pay me? Now, after you establish, that's your main concern. Then you're also concerned about these other things as well. But if they can't pay the rent, who cares if they're not gonna damage the property or whether, you know, none of those things matter.
Mm. Keyword, main concern.
Main concern. So you've got to read the questions properly. The property owner and the property user have a right to know each other's identity. Talking about the rights. This one, some people got wrong. and those of you who got this wrong, tell me why you thought you were right with your choice.
Well, I definitely got this wrong because I have a problem with this one.
Okay.
Let's Cleophas.
Yeah, Cleo. So tell us what your problem is, because I think you have a valid point. So let me hear it.
I mean,
You and I already had a discussion on this, so let everybody else say your point is very valid.
I mean, I never encountered where the tenant actually truly wanted to know the identity of the owner. And as an owner, some owners like to be anonymous, especially if they live on property, because you don't want that sometimes face-to-face awkward moment with every tit for tat, someone knocking on your door, oh, this light bulb, oh, this sink, oh, this something. So it's, in the owner's side of it, I know a lot of owners don't like to be known. And on the tenant side of it, most times, once you have a property manager in place, usually they directly call the property manager. Like the owners don't give you their number, email, like literally nothing. I know in some situations where I am the middleman and the owners are not even in country. So it's like they tell you like, hey, you handle this down there. We don't want no one to know what's going on. The only thing we send is our banking information and you just send the funds. Don't let no one know who's the owner of this. So I didn't know this was like a law or something. I didn't know that they actually had a right to know, because even when they asked, I just let them know that, hey, the owner wants to be anonymous, so I'll be the one you speak to when you need something.
Okay. Anyone else with a question on this? Margie says she's encountered the same thing. So to move this along, let me say this. This is a very interesting point because there are many instances where the owner wants to not be known. I mean, that is probably more common than owners who want to be known. A lot of owners of property don't want the tenant to know that they own the property. However, this question comes from, again, the rights within a contract. If you're going to sign an agreement, the agreement must, and this is the MUST, must indicate, must clearly state who the agreeing parties are. The person signing the agreement, the tenant, must know who the owner is. They have a right to know the identity of the owner. Now, because they signed an agreement with them. Now, does that mean that owner cannot be represented by a company name, Apex B. Of course they can be.
Okay.
My name is Ian, but I can sign an agreement with you as Apex B. You know the owner is, but you don't know it's me personally. So that's really what that question, the trick in that question is that you cannot have an agreement between two parties who are held unaware of each other's identity. You have to put the names of the parties in the agreement. But to what everyone is saying who's spoken so far, you do have a huge amount of owners who want to not be known to the tenant, and you have to find ways for that to happen. Either the way that it's normally done, and we would have talked about this in a bit before in chapter 3, I think, is that people form companies to represent the owner. That's the way around you and knowing exactly who the owner is. Now, if people want to dig, they can go and dig and find out who owns the company. And what some owners do, because they know people do that, is that they bury the company within 3 different realms of companies. So you have a company that's owned by a company, and that company is owned by the owner. So when you go and start digging as to who owns the company that you're running from, you run into another company.
Yep. But
so
isn't that also a trick part of this question? Because it literally says identity. So it says you have the right to know each other's identity. So it's when you say a company, you could say, okay, well, I know that the owner of this place is a company, but that's not really their identity. You might have the right to know who you're signing the lease with, but that company is not that person's identity. So that's why I got confused, because I was like, they saying that you actually have the right to know who is the identity of that company that you're signing your lease with.
So Cleophas is pointing out that the question itself may can be a bit misleading, and I agree with him, because the question, your interpretation of identity, like my interpretation, is like you want to know the name of the exact name of the person who owns it, and while identity doesn't have to mean that, that is certainly one interpretation of it. And the better way for the question to be asked is that have a right to know who they are making the agreement with, or the name of the other party. They have a right to that. That name could be a company name, but they have a right to it. All right, then the next thing that we had, oh boy, we're moving slowly through this. The next thing that we had was the thing about the clause that was taken from the text about delivering. What does the following mean? To deliver the landlord on the termination of the tenancy, or then to leave upon the demise premises and in the appropriate parts thereof of all the furniture and other property except articles lost or broken or destroyed. In lieu of such last mentioned articles, any substituted articles in such state of repair and condition as shall be in strict compliance with his liability under the covenant herein before contained. Wow. By the time you get to the end of that, I start to roll over and you have no clue what they're talking about, even if you did. But I was asking, what does that mean? What's the answer for that? I'm going to stop picking on people because people falling asleep here. Georgia, what's the answer for that?
I don't have my paper in front of me. I'm not following that.
Oh, you don't have it in front of you? Okay. Anybody else?
None of the above.
None of the above.
None of the above.
None of
Okay.
the above.
So great. So that particular question had an excerpt from a covenant. It was taken directly from a covenant, and won't read it again because it's really, really gobbledygook. But the interpretations was the tenant should hire, move and van and deliver furniture to the owner when the lease ends. The tenant does not have to be concerned about lost, broken, or destroyed items. That's not true. The tenant does have to be concerned. All items in a leased property must remain in the same condition and position that the tenant. That's not true. If the tenant damages something, all the tenant needs to do is substitute something else. That's not true. The answer is none of these were correct. So what does this actually mean? Somebody.
Yeah,
So-
so,
so-
mhm.
All items in a leased property must remain in the same condition and position that the tenant met them in. If not, the tenant is automatically
Yeah.
automatically liable. Maybe I'm not reading it correctly, but that seems like that would be a consideration in it.
Yes.
Automatic, well, the problem is position. That's the
Hmm.
trick in that. You can make liable someone for moving a chair from one spot to the next.
We're being literal, okay.
Yeah, that's what position means.
Okay, when it says position, I was thinking condition.
No, but it says condition and position. These questions are really to help you to read properly. A lot of and I'm gonna take a segue because I really wanted to talk about this in connection with your assignments that some of you did. A lot of your lack of perfection in your assignments because persons are not deciphering the problem that they're addressing. So your trick in life, this has nothing to do with property management, is whenever you encounter a problem, you have to have a system where you can figure out what that problem is. The problem with most problems is that they give us an emotional response. That's natural. The minute you encounter a problem, your chemistry starts to change and your mental state start to shift and everything starts to go a bit south, and that's normal. However, in the middle of that, many of us do not exactly know what the problem is. We know we have a problem, but we forget that we have to take a step back and have a system for dissecting the problem, because to solve it, you have to know what it is, not feel what it is, or think you know, or believe you know, or have a sense you know. Some people start to answer the problem before the problem even reveals itself to them, because they're reacting to a feeling that they have. I have a problem. I don't know if you've met people like this. The minute they encounter a problem, the first thing they do is get angry and start to make noise. They don't even, in some cases, they don't even have a problem. They just felt that they did. So they have groomed themselves to attack the problem, a problem, by getting mad and start making noise and putting the other person on the defensive. But if they had listened and really sought out what the problem is, they may have realized, you know what, I can talk this out in 2 seconds and this problem, and this will be solved. Do not answer your questions with that same manner. We're going to go through one later where I give you an example of what I'm talking about. And I think I put it in your comments of most of you, even when you didn't need it, because some people are actually pretty good at deciphering the problem. I put in that, look, the problem is A, B, C, D, and E, and you should address those things only. Same thing here. You've got to really understand what it's asking you and don't go anywhere else. All right, so quickly go through the obligations the property owner is fully, okay. The obligations of the property owner is fully captured in, and it's only one thing, the lease agreement. All right. No one should have gotten this incorrect. The obligations between the owner and the user is captured in the lease agreement. The obligations between the owner and the property manager is captured in what?
Property management.
But Odessa, I'm picking on you. The obligations between the property owner and the property manager is captured in
In the property management agreement.
the property management agreement. Excellent, thank you. All right, now, I mean, let's have a quick look at what the options were here. Business plan. In fact, one of the exercises you're going to get before we're done with this course is for you to actually present a business plan. But a business plan is exactly what it says. I have a business, and this is how I either plan to get my business started or plan to keep it going. That's a business plan. Legislation is exactly what it says, the law. So that's not correct. A property conveyance is is exactly what it means. Convey means to transfer something from one party to the next. So a property conveyance is a document that transfers property from one person to the next. Obviously, you're not transferring property when you rent it. Property management agreement is Odessa just described. All right, next thing. In the Bahamas, according to law, the property owner is obligated to allow property user to have an emotional support animal on property, no matter what the standard lease indicates about pets. The answer to that is definitely false. There is no law in this country that says that someone can have an emotional support animal. Morally, as human beings, you might want to say, yeah, you know, if someone, by the way, let me ask somebody else. Melody, I have Melody on the call. Melody, could you tell us what you think an emotional support animal is?
Morning. I'm thinking emotional support animal is for persons who have anxiety attack and dealing with emotional issues. So the animal acts as support for calming or something like that.
Definitely. And in the States, this is huge. In the United States, this is huge. You know, you can't carry pets into all sorts of places in the United States, but there are people who have a license for an emotional support animal. They can carry their pet, and it don't have to be a dog. It could be a lizard. They can carry their pet with them anywhere because they have a right to have this emotional support animal. You can't carry your pet because you ain't got emotional issues and you don't have a license to have an emotional support animal. So, but in the Bahamas, we have no such thing. All right. Now, this talks about the property manager must understand and administer the obligations between, and I'll quickly read what was here in the quiz. And it says, the property manager must understand and administer the obligations between the owner and the user, the property manager and the user, the owner and the manager, the owner and the tenant, the user and other property users, the tenant and vendors they acquire goods and services from, property owners and entities that provide goods and services to property. The only thing that's incorrect in this list is that tenants and vendors they acquire goods and services from. Tenants and vendors they acquire goods and services from is not the business of the property manager. Everything else is the business of the property manager. The relationship between the owner and the user, the manager and the user, the owner and the manager, the owner and the tenant, which is saying, we said that before, and so on. We're getting close to the end. In the case where a property contains a piece of antique furniture or artifacts, a property owner can prescribe in the lease agreement that the tenant cannot touch or use these items. Anyone got that incorrect? Everyone should have gotten that right. I haven't checked the stats, but everyone should have gotten that right. Because, yeah, you can put an agreement that, hey, there is a, you know, a heirloom of, you know, I got some reindeer that my great grandfather shot, 400 years ago, and the head is up on the wall. You can't, that thing you can't touch. Don't fool with that. You can put that in the lease agreement. In conducting due diligence on a prospective tenant, the manager should. Now, this is where some people got in problems. When you're conducting due diligence, you can conduct criminal background checks, you can canvass previous and current neighbors, you can survey co-workers and associates, you can have face-to-face interviews and conversations with the person. You can use reliable resources to research online presence and activities, so you can look at their social media activity. You can obtain and check employer references. You can review opinions of previous landlords. You can use comprehensive tenancy application forms. So your application form can collect information on the person. All this is stuff that you're doing for your due diligence, but you cannot spy on people. You can't, install one little GPS camera in their car to see where they just go and all that other kind of stuff. That's not something you can do. So that is the one that was out. A property manager can refuse, and a number of people got this incorrect. A property manager can refuse to rent to someone who has not had a COVID-19 vaccination. Is that true?
No.
No. Can refuse to rent to someone that has a pet that has not had regular vaccination. So say you allow pets. Can you now say to the person, you can have pets, but I'm not, and the key to this is refuse to rent. So this is not a current renter. Someone's coming to you to rent something from you, and you putting up a stipulation like, I'm not gonna rent to you if your pet is not vaccinated. If your pet is not registered with governmental authorities. Some of these are really touch and go. If you've been convicted of a serious criminal offense, if you believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is a conspiracy theory, if you've been arrested in a crime investigation, if you've declared yourself an atheist. Now, what we found was that the only reason, right?
Convicted.
A property manager can refuse to rent to someone is if they have had a criminal conviction.
Convicted, right. So been arrested in a criminal investigation. I know that that's incorrect now, but could they not refuse under those grounds?
I mean, you can refuse on any ground. You own the property. Now,
Right, but would they get in trouble? Would that be illegal?
right.
That's the
I was
question.
gonna say, if the person wants to push back against a refusal, you're not gonna have a leg to stand on. Because if I was arrested for an offense, the law says I am not a criminal. The law says that. You're not a criminal because you're arrested for an offense. You're criminal because you're convicted of an offense.
Okay.
You have persons who are traveling today with the what's called the visa thing, not the visa, the police record, because they were arrested for something, but their case ain't come up in court yet. They haven't been convicted, and so they still have a clean police record. You have to be careful with that one. When parties use special conditions in the lease, we talked about special conditions, obviously. And this one is really tricked people. Special conditions intend to cover, and I want to hear your points because some people got this quite wrong. Only two of these things are wrong. Special conditions are correct. Special conditions are for long-term arrangements, and special conditions are for exceptions and related consequences. That was taken right out of the book, by the way. Any discussions before we move on to what will be the last one? Tenants have a right.
My comment,
Okay, go ahead.
my comment on that is that now
This
that
is-
you've explained, and I mean, I'm not sure because I can't follow because I'm not, I don't have my paper in front of me, but I didn't think of that perspective, whereas unless someone is convicted, then they are a criminal versus if they have only been charged and it hasn't come up as yet.
Right.
That is a very interesting perspective and something that we should keep in mind. Oh, and one more thing while I remember, not related to this, but for all of us students, when we're doing those quizzes, please pay attention to when you click on your screen, because sometimes I've encountered it twice. They have actually pressed the screen in error and you end up changing your answer without realizing it. Those quizzes,
Yes.
when you selecting on the screen, it's very, very, very sensitive.
Yeah, this is a very important point, and not just for this quiz, but for every quiz that you take in this manner ever. That this happens, and people taking the CPAs and taking other type of multiple choice type quiz. You really have to be careful with these screens. And I know people who really know their stuff, really have the answers, and their fingers are just clicking the wrong thing. I'm gonna share with you a true confess, and I love playing Sudoku, and probably play once a day every day. It's a bad habit of mine, and I've hardly ever played that game without making an error caused by me touching something and not intending to touch it, because I'm pressing the number 2 on the screen, but for some odd reason, the number 3, which is not what I think I'm pressing, shows up. So you really have to be careful when you're doing these touch things that you're not selecting something you didn't intend. You got to look back over your work.
Right, Ian, I am quite certain the one that says, you know, that the main concern of the property manager is the one that says that the fella can pay. I am quite certain that I only said I only press that. But apparently, when I went back, it had me press the whole thing. You see,
Wow.
I lost marks on that. So I'm wondering if you know, because of the sensitivity of it, because, you know, I'm going through and I'm saying, you know I pressed this. I know my answer was this, but it's giving me some other answers. And also, when you have 2 selections, I know for the one we're discussing now, I got 1 right, but I didn't get any points for it.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about this this particular quiz is that it is not going towards your overall grades.
Yeah.
I am going to, like I say, reopen the quiz so that everyone can, and when it's reopened, you're going to be able to do it multiple times, so that everyone can go back through it again until you can do it. And I really advise you to try and do it without doing the research thing along with it. I am going to hopefully, I got to make a discussion of this before we end today. I'm going to give you 1 or 2 more quizzes over the course of next week that are going to be also very involved. So same thing that you really, one of them I'm going to give you where you can actually do the quiz a number of times if you want and resubmit. But the other one is going to be like, hey, this is it. You got X hours, X time to do it. And you must submit it when you're done. I admonish you to really practice all your quizzes that way, because that's the final exam. You're not going to have a do-over or the kind of facility to put it down and come back to it. None of that. It's so practice all your quizzes that way. All right, so let's take a quick time. We might go over a little bit today. I know we said we tried to end at 12, so we might go over a little bit today. I want to start by talking about something that I probably shouldn't leave to the end because it might really take us over. And it's that next week, Saturday, I unfortunately have to be in Atlanta on next week, Saturday. I've been asked to do the eulogy at a funeral of an aunt of mine who's being married in Atlanta. And the funeral is at 11. So I need to get a kind of advice from this group as to how they think we should handle that particular session. Obviously, I can't be there. Now, in my mind, we can do several things. Let me give you the options so you can think about it and you tell me what you think is best to do. We can do a quiz that day. I can set a quiz for you to do. I can give you a ton of assignments that's due at the end of that class over the course of that you do over the course of this week, and probably use the class time to do it as well. We can do that class time because we're a bit ahead of schedule, by the way. So we can do that class time at another time, either try to make it up on the remaining times we have, or we can reschedule it to Sunday afternoon. In fact, I have two aunts that have passed. One's been buried in Atlanta and one's been buried here, and I do the eulogy for both. So I fly back from Atlanta on Saturday evening after the funeral on Saturday, so that I can do the eulogy here on Sunday for my other aunt. But that's Sunday evening or Monday, the holiday, is another option that we may have for doing next week's class. So with all those options in hand, could I have feedback as to what people think we should do?
Yeah, I said already that I think we can, the assignment, because that always takes up some good bit of time.
Yeah.
Having an assignment in place of that during that period, I think is quite reasonable.
Okay, all right, anybody else? Y'all let Marjorie rule the day.
Oh, sorry.
Don't be sorry about that, Marjorie.
The quiz takes up less time. Bring on the quiz.
Okay, so quiz. Anybody else? You said
I-
the quiz on Saturday?
On any day, it takes up less time. We don't need to sit
Okay.
through 3 hours of research to do an assignment.
All right.
I would go with the assignment.
Okay.
Yeah,
right, so
those
we-
assignments is
So
Assignment.
the option of us meeting on an alternative day is off the table, right? No one's saying that one, so we can take that off the table.
That's never on the table for a Sunday.
This moment, I
There
think
are
it's
others at the table.
comparable. Having the assignment is, same
All
as
right.
having
Yeah.
the class.
Definitely. And we obviously can have the option of discussing the assignment as well. The other thing that is going to happen, and this is housekeeping again, I need to discuss it with you, is that we're probably going to have, we haven't set the exam date for the class yet, but unless someone disagrees, it is probably going to be the second week in October. I want you to look at your calendar. I'm going to send it
Can
separately.
you repeat that, please?
It's going to be the second week in October.
oh
not
no,
September? Not
oh
September.
no.
Who's saying, oh no, Blair? Blair,
According
what-
to my
Yeah.
schedule, this class is supposed to be September.
Georgie, you dropped out.
Yeah, I think I plan to, yeah, I'm traveling that week. Does that run
Okay.
into the 7th to the 12th?
So you traveling the week of, because this is, I'm bringing this up because there's quite a level of flexibility here. I want to do
Okay.
something. I want to do something that everyone is happy with. That's the main thing here. This is a property management principle, right? We're trying to please the client. So we don't want it to happen in September. I'm telling you why, because I'm going to be in Wales for the first 3 weeks of September.
Oh,
Now, some of those, at least some of those weeks, I'm able to actually even have classes. But that's where I'm going to be. I'm attending a conference in Wales to do with education.
But
Go ahead.
our classes would have already concluded by before even September, right? Don't we finish
Yeah.
like first week in September?
Yeah, I think we're supposed to conclude on the last class is supposed to be the 3rd of September.
Okay,
So
so then you're saying the exam itself wouldn't be until,
So the last class is the 3rd of September. That gives us 1, 2, 3, because we're missing, in a sense, we're missing getting together on the 6th. But we're gonna make up for the fact that we're gonna miss the 6th. So we can end and have the last class on the 3rd, but if we do the exam, unless I can get someone else to invigilate the exam, which is I can have the institute invigilate the exam. If we end on the 3rd, you need some time to prepare for the exam. And I would think you need about 2 weeks, unless some of you think you need less. So the exam can be on the 24th, or it can be on the 1st of October. If not, we can set it for some date after that. Anybody with anything? Look at your calendars, think about it. You don't have to answer this question today. George is coming back.
I think someone had mentioned that they are traveling. I think, was
Yeah.
that?
My
That was-
apologies, I got knocked out.
Yeah, so Georgia, we're looking at the last class is the 3rd of September. We're looking at the exam being on the 24th of September or the 1st of September.
Either is fine as long as it's in September. I'm traveling the entire month of October.
Okay, so the 1st of October is fine with you as well. Okay, good. So we're settled. So keep bearing in mind, it'll be the 24th or the 1st. My disposition is to make it the 1st so you can have even more time to prepare. The more
Okay.
time you have to prepare, the better.
So October 1st?
October 1st. So we're gonna call it October the 1st.
Okay,
Okay,
Yeah,
fine with that.
that way I will be back for the 2 weeks before that. I'll be back by the 24th. So I mean, we're all connected by this electronic world, but I want to be able to be available to the person in case they have questions and so forth and so on, that we can iron out. And if we need to do a special study session and all of that, we can do all of that given the time period. So we're not just ending the class 1 week and the next thing you know, you're taking an exam. All right, so we have about half an hour to go, and I want to. It's not enough time to give attention to. We're supposed to be talking about reports, property manager, the reports, the kind of reports that the property manager is going to take, is going to have to prepare. One of the things that I put in the course materials in Google Classroom, I put there for you something about cover sheets. I noticed that, and please have a look at that and try to incorporate cover sheets for not just property lease assignments, but for things that you do for people. You know, if you went into the store and no book had a cover, you'd be quite upset. You wouldn't know what book to look at. So it's the same thing. As an individual, you want to have a covering. It's like wearing clothes, to be honest with you. You want to have something that says, this is me. This is Crystal, this is Blair, this is whoever. This is me. And this is what this is an introduction to, there's something behind this door and it's interesting. And that's what a cover sheet is for. You want to create one that all you have to do is maybe just change the title every time. So you create a standard one, you just call it My Cover Sheet. And every time you want to use it, you just put it in at the beginning of your document and change the title and change the date and stuff like that. So you don't have to keep doing it over and over again. The next thing I want to talk about is we talked
Before
about
you move on from that, sorry.
Marjorie.
Before you move on from that, in that same note that you sent, you had said, here are some examples, and then below the example looks like an assignment, a
Yeah.
question. Is that what that is? Because it's buried in there, I wasn't sure.
No, that's not an assignment for you to do. But of course, I thank you for mentioning that, Marjorie. I do want to let you know the assignments in the back of the book, they're called explorations. They are there for you to do. I think I got a comment from someone that they saw something in the quiz that was not in the book. This book, and then the property management arena is vast, and the book does not touch on so many things. The exploration section in the back gives you an opportunity to explore the area in and outside of the book. So for your own benefit, you're not, that's why I keep stressing to you, with this course, you're not doing this for a grade, you're doing this to gain knowledge. And those of you who are here to try to get a grade, you're on the wrong track. You're here to gain knowledge for your benefit. You want to go through those exploration exercises in the back and actually do some of them. And some of them are what's going to be assigned to you. But to answer Marjorie's question, that particular one, I just use an example and it's not an assignment. But you on your own should do these things because every one you do is going to teach you something. Okay, so let's look at something else that I really want to go over with you, and it's deciphering the questions. I'm going to do a quick thing. In assignment number 3A, assignment number 3A said, explore the types of properties available to a property manager in the Bahamas. As a budding property manager entering the industry, put together a dream portfolio of properties you would wish to have under management, giving examples, preferably from the Bahamas. Explain why you design your portfolio the way you have, while fully detailing the pros and cons of the types of your portfolio. This question means, if I'm going to approach, I really wish I had a blackboard and could do this in front of you guys. That'd be my preferred method of going through what I'm about to go through. But to answer this question properly, you have to understand what it's asking you. What is this asking you? Some of it is fluff, but it says put together and present. There's two different actions, put together and present. But what does it want to present? A dream portfolio. So a dream portfolio is anything that you could dream up. That's what it means. It means your ideal portfolio. And a portfolio that you would dream of managing, that you would wish to have under management. So you have to put together a dream portfolio. So you must present in this answer a dream portfolio. One, and it must be of properties. Then it says, give examples, preferably from the Bahamas. Now you don't have to give them from the Bahamas, but one, you must give examples. So if you say my dream portfolio is to have 50 high-end luxury properties under my residential properties under my management, you should at least give examples of one. And if you like some of you are really off the chain and actually provided photos of properties that you would that were examples of your dream properties. So they said, my dream property, my dream portfolio is to have commercial buildings, 4 or 5 commercial buildings. They actually found a picture of a commercial property in the Bahamas and said, this is an example of it. So, so one, you ask to put together dream portfolio, you ask to give examples, and it says preferably from the Bahamas, so it don't have to be, but preferably. And then it says another thing, explain why you design your portfolio the way you have. How many people did that? Oh, let me pick on the ones who may have not done that. Would somebody confess to not explaining why they designed the portfolio the way they did? Who wants to confess? Nobody wants. Confession is good, you know. Nobody wants to confess. Oh boy. Anyway, not all of you explained why you designed your portfolio the way you did, but that's a part that was asked in the question. And then it said, fully detail the pros and cons. That's 2 different things. Fully detail the pros, fully detail the cons. And it says fully detail. That's overkill. Fully detail of the property types in your portfolio. So if you had put in your portfolio only commercial properties, or only condos, or condos plus Airbnbs plus whatever, it says fully explain what's good about the stuff that you selected and anything that might be negative about the stuff that you selected. And there ain't much things in life that's just is all roses and don't have thorns. So that's what the question is asked. So your answer should deliver all of those things for you to have a great answer. Anybody with any comments and understand what I'm trying to get at here?
Yes, this is the thing. I enjoyed the assignments for that. This is why it was such a strange phenomenon to me that I wasn't getting the same results with the exams, but breaking it down like that made it easier. How you have the time to sit and break down fully detailed pros and cons. So you can break out into, okay, this is my dream property. What is the good part of it? What is the bad part of it? And then articulate it in the format that you were asking for. And then the other part, coming up with the dream properties, look at something, even if it's obviously fake, just fine, but what in your mind you'd want in any event, should you have this kind of job, or if you're able to have the business. I think that's how I broke it down from there, breaking it down into, oh, I like this property, that property, and this property. And if I have any idea of what's going on in these properties, then I was able to articulate what I would do if I had those as my dream.
Okay, all right. So Crystal, I'm gonna pick on you, change the subject here. What is the point, Crystal, of property managers doing reports? Crystal, are you with us? Okay. Let me go to Crystal just moved, or somebody moved. Let me go to Cohen. Cohen, what's the point of property managers doing reports?
You had said for myself, right?
Oh, you're here. Yeah,
Yes, sir.
okay, Crystal, you can tackle this. It was you that I had picked on. Yeah, what is the point of property managers doing reports?
So you can get an allocation and account for all that has been brought in for the property, as well as any expenses. So the owner of the property can also have an idea how everything is being managed and run.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things about somebody who is able to, especially someone who is proactive, but by proactive means you give people information before they could even ask you for it. So, which means you need to set up your informing on a time schedule. And you want to give people, not overwhelm them with information, but you want to give them information so that they're left with really nothing to ask. That is impressive. When someone is giving you a breakdown on what is happening, what has happened, and when you finish going through it, you're really not left with any questions because they've covered it all. A property manager wants to develop the skill where they understand what the property owner needs and how they're going to deliver that information to them on a schedule, in time, accurate, attractive, all the kind of stuff that's listed in the book that you want to put together and deliver to the property owner, even if they didn't ask you for it. It shows that you are a consummate professional when you can just provide reports. Now, there are three basic types of reports, as mentioned right at the very beginning of the spiel in the book, about what you're going to report on. So I'm going to pick on Cohen for this. Cohen, what are the three basic things you are reporting on?
Morning.
Morning.
The three basic things a property manager reports on is the financial reports, that's the income statement or whatever, cash flow statement, and the owner statement.
Okay, you jumped ahead of us, but that's good. That's a great answer. So because we are dealing with time, stay here because I'm going to ask you something else. What I was looking for, because you're not incorrect, you're absolutely correct in your answer, but what the answer I was looking for is that the owner wants to be informed about the operations.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be informed about the finances, and they also want to be informed about risk.
Yes, okay.
So and that's not a finite list, but those are the three things that kind of pop out ahead that now we have to start thinking ahead. What does that mean? Operations, finances, and risk. Why is that three different things? Well, operations, for instance, can someone give me an example of an operational report? That's not a financial report, but an operational report. Crystal, back to you again.
Would it be the day-to-day or the month-to-month in and out of the property?
Payments?
Payments yes, payments.
Okay, I guess you can call that operational. Yeah, that sounds a bit more financial, but it is operational. Yeah. Now, can someone give me something that's strictly operational?
Looking at the property status, right? The position of the property, it's intact, repair and maintenance. Those things which affect the value of the property. Basically, it's an ongoing report, which shows that the property is viable, and that doesn't need excessive repair maintenance, or if there's a need for improvements, whatever have you. The owner is aware of what the issues are, and in terms of what needs to be done to get the property to maintain the property in a pristine condition. So it's more of maintaining the property's value.
Okay, so sure, that for instance, if you do something for your owner, like an inspections and a monthly or quarterly inspections report, where you basically just send them a listing of everything that you've inspected and what condition you found them in, even if this is a checklist. So I looked at the quality of water in the well that was checked, and the water quality is good. Checked the state of the tiles and the walkways, and they were good. And a checklist, that's operational. You can send a report on on the attendance of service people. So if you're someone who's supposed to do the landscaping every week, and then someone supposed to come in and do some other job, or someone's supposed to come in and do maintenance on the generator, you can actually send a maintenance schedule and a maintenance checklist as to what has been done. That's an operational report. A financial report, and Cohen has hinted on this, financial reports are reports where you are letting the owner or yourself know how things are going financially. So we're gonna come back to this. I'm gonna really rush through this. So there you're talking about, yes, things like your balance sheet, your cash flow statement, your profit and loss. Now, that last thing I'm mentioning, profit and loss, you're in business, and I don't, even philanthropic businesses are in business and want to make a profit. And anyone in business who says that profit is not something that they're interested in, I don't know what they're talking about. So a profit and loss report is key for you to understand what that is. So I am going to pick, I'm not going to call on Kevin because he's the one with the big accounting credentials. So I want to pick on someone that I don't know that they have big accounting credentials. I don't know who that is, but I'm going to take a stab at Odessa. Odessa, tell me what you have learned. One puts into something called a profit and loss report or an income statement.
And I believe Odessa is an accountant, you know.
Pardon me?
She's an
Odessa, you're an accountant?
Kevin, why are you talking my business? I'm really trying to get this pre-question right.
I was wondering why
Yes.
Odessa wasn't saying nothing.
Oh
Yes,
boy.
Ian, I am.
Oh, you are an accountant too? Okay, boy. So
She said
hands up those who are not accountants, except for Marjorie. And asking Marjorie because Marjorie been
Sorry.
running the show this session. So the persons who are not accountants, Cleophas, are you an accountant?
I have 2 account certifications. I don't know if that
Oh.
qualifies me as a one.
So I mean, I can't find anyone to pick on. I want someone, Georgia, tell me what in your view is a profit and loss report or an income statement? What is that? How does one put that together, and why and when? If not, I'm gonna have to resort to one of the accountants.
I was about to say, I haven't done accounting in at least since high school.
So you're the best person to pick on because I'm gonna
I
get
can't speak to the profit.
I'm
Sorry,
gonna get an answer that's a
debit side versus the credit side and the liability side, and
yeah. So I don't want you to get technical on me. That's why I want to ask someone like you. I want you to give me a common sense answer as to what this thing is. What is this profit and loss report, or this income statement that you want to put together? What is it? What will you put in it?
so I can't say what all I'll put in it, but profit and loss is basic, how much you will make and how much your expenses will be, whether it's a profit versus the loss, all your liabilities and your assets and the amount coming in per month or however it's calculated.
Boy, oh boy, I tell you, Georgia, you ain't lie. You didn't do your accounting for a little bit.
Mhm.
You put a mash of terms in that one thing. That's interesting. So let me go back to Odessa then. Odessa is the accountant. Odessa, give us clarify for us what this, because you're in business to make money. And one way for you to show what you've made is to do this particular report. So tell us about it.
Okay, so the P&L, the profit and loss report or income statement really represents a breakdown of your it shows your income coming in. So in a case where you may be renting a property or you're managing a property, you're collecting rent from on behalf of the owner. So you would have this report that shows all the income that came in. It will also have all of the expenses that you incurred and on a monthly basis. This report is usually done on a monthly basis. It could be quarterly or whatever, but you'd have the income that came in that month. You'd have the total income, and then you'd have some administrative expenses that will be deducted from that income right away. And then that will show you your initial profit before expenses. And then you will begin to list the expenses. So if you had to have the apartment painted, the yard cleaned, or pay some licenses, etc., that type thing, then you would have a running total of those. And then at the bottom, then you will have a net profit or net loss. So it's a report that provides the owner with how much money they're losing from their property on a regular basis.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, again, we're not going to spend time on this chapter. We're going to do this chapter another time. And in fact, because this entire chapter, folks, covers three things: reporting on operations, reporting on your financial situation, and reporting on risk. Understanding risk, understanding finances, understanding operations enough to report on them. And if you're one of the persons whose eyes just rolled over when Odessa was talking just now, I will tell you, this part of property management is where the gravy is. If you are able to understand and prepare and put together all relevant reports for your business, this property management business. And actually, we talk about in the text, being creative enough to contextually decide, because of what I'm doing here, I'm going to create my own report that's going to be this, that, and next. I'm going to report on these things. But if you have the wherewithal to be able to report substantively on as a part of your business operations, that is going to set you apart. That is going to put you on a level where, one, your integrity gets solidified, because people tend to understand that if someone can put together and tell me what's going on in terms of the figures, in terms of the operations, in terms of risk and how risks are being handled, if someone can do that, that person has their stuff put together. I could trust them, I could depend on them, and so forth and so on. So this is an area of property management where, because there are a number of people involved in property management, but a lot of people are not doing this. They are, calling the guy in to do this, they're looking about, but they're not focusing on the reporting end. And I'm telling you, whether your owner or interested stakeholders are asking about reports or not, if you can provide useful, on-point reports, you will put yourself over the top and put yourself in a position to have a value that other persons don't have. And if you have a value of that level, it means that you should be making more money. End of story. The money you make in life is tied directly to the value that you put on the table. And having a value like being able to prepare reports, understand reports that are prepared, is an incredible value. Yeah, so when you go through this chapter again, I want you to look at it not as, oh my God, what is all this stuff? But actually understanding that you need to be closely tied to this type of activity, reporting. This is the end of this particular lesson is about understanding risk and understanding insurances. So we're going to do that as a separate thing. because risk management is a huge thing that a property manager needs to have, because if you just flying by the seat of your pants and not having a strategy for handling risk, everything that you do has some risk involved. And you are better off if you have a strategy for understanding, if I do this, what are the things that can go wrong? And if they go wrong, what do I have in place to address them? That's a simplistic way of talking about risk management. But you have to do that to be an effective property management. And you have to have a system for getting that done so that you actually do it. So I want to open up the floor before we close to any questions, any comments, any suggestions. And we will tackle this lesson. We have lesson 9, 10, 11, and 12 to go. That's 4 lessons, and we have the time to do them, and we have time for revision. And of course we have to go back over everything that we've done again, and sort of tie everything in together. But any questions, suggestions, comments?
Right, Ian. I know one of the biggest issues in terms of expense tracking is that sometimes people have a tendency of just withdrawing some money off the account and paying bills out of pocket. You're giving the guy a couple of dollars and saying, well, yeah, that's what it is. But with expense tracking, the big thing really is make sure that you transact, either through check form or through direct deposit form, in order to really keep an eye or keep a firm hold on the finances. And also, I think in terms of the financial reporting, I think Odessa would say that sometimes you have persons who report on a cash basis, which means that they only record the monies which come in and the monies which actually go out. They don't really capture, let's say, debts which accrue over a period which you don't pay. So you got to be very mindful that even though you might, debts may exist, they during the period, but they might have been paid. So which means that you also have to account for them as well. Which means that you're doing it under a cash basis or under accrual basis. You're liable for all the expenses incurred, whether paid or not.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin. And we're going to get into this because it's really important for you to understand the definition of the main things in accounting. You must understand what an asset is, what a liability is, what owner's equity is. And then you have to understand the constituents of what really is an expense and what is revenue. Because just those 5 things, if you truly, truly understand what they mean, puts you on a footing to understand a lot more. So I'll say them again: assets, liabilities, owner's equity, revenue, and expenses. You have to understand what those things are. And Kevin made an important point. Cash is not the only thing that's of value. So for instance, if your tenants are using the power in the building, and that you have an electricity bill about to be due, the fact that they've used the electricity, although you haven't paid the bill yet, then you have an expense. You actually have an expense. So if you are going to account for your expenses for the month, you need to account for that electricity bill for the use of electricity for the month, although you haven't paid the bill yet, because that has happened. So everything is not about cash. And we will dive deep into that when we understand the categories of accounting. And we want to dive deep into understanding what risk management is in a sense, and then dive a little deeply into operational management, the kind of stuff. And we've actually touched on operational management a lot, but we're going to talk a little bit more about what you think about when you are managing an operations as to the standard things that you report on as an operations manager. So we talk about operations management, financial management, and risk management. Last thing I want to talk about, and I want you to do a study on this, I'm going to give you a question on this, is budgeting and budget planning. For your personal life and your business life, and I say this so strongly, you should not move forward in your personal life or your business life without having a budget. So Kevin just spoke, so I don't know if we have any accountants other than Kevin and Odessa, but I'm going to pick on somebody else to tell me what they think. Cleophas, could you tell us on our parting from each other today, what is your definition of a budget? What is that?
Well, my definition of a budget for me is just a record of revenue and expenses and also projections. So a budget will usually be in foresight or ahead. So you budget basically for the month ahead. So sometimes, like if you have rent coming and you know the revenue you should be getting for that month. And then also if you know you have maintenance such as the gardener coming every 2 weeks or cleaning company you hired or something like that. So all these things that you put in the budget is there to help keep everything in order. And it's a part
Okay.
of the
So I mean, great answer, Cleophas. So as we leave, I want you to really scour the resources that you have, the internet and wherever, and understand what a budget is. And Cleophas has given us a great answer because he didn't leave something that a lot of people sometimes leave out. People think a budget is you're planning how you're going to spend money. No, a budget is a plan for inflow and outflow of funds. So it's not just one directional. It's not that I plan and how I can spend my money. You're planning revenue and you're planning expenditure, not just expenditure. And one great strategy for someone who's putting a budget together for the first time is to come up with a rational plan for what expenses should be. Not what they are, but what they should be. In order, and how are you determining what they should be? You're saying, well, in order for me to operate this particular function, let's do it as a person. In order for me to be a person and function as a person, I need to eat $50 worth of food every week because I gotta live. I need to live on someplace and my accommodations just basically is going to cost me, $500 a week or whatever. Then that's what you do. A budget is based on rational stuff, based on your context, and you come up with an expense thing where you kind of tick off all the boxes of things that you must spend money on. And then there's another category for things that you would like to spend money on, which is different. But once you determine what money is needed for or expenditure is needed for, then you come up with, how do I pay for this? That's revenue. And if you do a budget properly, it will actually help you to be realistic that, wait a minute, I'm not making enough money to live a sensible life. Because the figures say so. How do I fix this? I either have to change my life so I'm not spending I don't spend money on things that I think I need to spend it on, or I need to change my life so I'm making enough money to pay for my expenditures. Which is a simple exercise. And it's an exercise that everyone ought to do for themselves personally, and that everyone ought to do for their business. So we are going to end there, folks. Again, before we go, I want to give a last opportunity to anyone who wants to bring up any questions or any comments before we go.
Are we having an assignment?
Pardon me?
Did I miss that? I'm wondering, did we mention we were having an assignment coming up?
Yes, you're gonna be flooded with assignments. Now,
Here.
you are.
Just
So,
ask.
so some of those assignments are gonna come out of because we're not gonna have a class on Saturday.
Mhm.
Some of those some of those assignments are gonna backtrack to some of the things we covered already, but they're gonna come out of the explorations part of the book. I will give you a quiz that is based on lesson 9, and I would like you to start preparing lesson 10 and lesson 11. They're kind of connected, and we've done a lot of stuff in lesson 10 already. These are short things. One is about the tenant and one is about ethics. But start preparing those, and then we have the very, very short thing about trends to look at. But we will cover lesson 9 properly the next time we meet. But you're gonna get a ton of assignments.
Okay.
The assignments to the exploration questions that I'm gonna give you. It depends on how much you do, but I will tell you this. You want to make sure that you address the questions. I cannot overemphasize that. And it's twofold. Don't miss out on anything that the question is asking you. But on the other side of it, don't supply a ton of information the question is not asking you. So it's nice for you to put a whole 2 pages about, the property management industry in the United States, but the question didn't ask you anything about that. It's not going to help you. So you want to avoid putting stuff into the question that into your answer that the question is requiring you to cover as well. All right. So before we go, seeing that we don't have to say anything else, I just want to see everybody's faces before we go. So if you can turn on your cameras, we can all do a turn on camera thing. Let me see if I can turn mine on.
Ian,
I'm all ready.
Right, Ian. I think one of the worst words, in small business, the reporting is accounts receivable. That's a very nasty word. People hate that word, because it shows that the tenant living on the premises, enjoying all the fruits of your labor, but they ain't paying. So when you have those accounts receivable getting big, that's problems for you. That means you ain't collecting my money.
Yeah,
so
it depends. It depends on your some people have a view. We can delve. I don't see Georgia yet, but there's some people have a view that they don't mind people owing them, because there's this thing. When you look at the accounting formula, right? The accounting formula says assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. Another way that I put that is that what a business owns, which is your assets, is equal to what it owes to others, which is liabilities, and what it owes to the owner. So what you own is equal to what you owe. And some people interpret it this way: if people owe me, then I own them. Whoever owes me, I own.
You might go to jail for that, Bob, because a lot of these young ladies ain't paying their rent.
So you own them. Some people say, if you owe me, I own. If you owe me, I own you.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's a lot more difficult to materialize than you think. But you're right. You want to be able to keep people owing you down to a rational level, because it could get out of hand and you can't get paid. And that has happened to people. You have to be careful about your heartstrings. A lot of us have heartstrings, and we listen to sad stories and we let things get out of hand. At the end of the day, money talks. And if you can't pay your bills because other people are not paying you, You put yourself in a, not everybody is as forgiving as you are. Put yourself in a bad situation. So thank you guys for your time. You know, we have committed that we're not going to do 3 hours. We're doing 2 hours every class. So Melody, you're joining us for the first time today, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So folks, we have someone called Melody. Melody, give me your last name. Is it Wilson?
Miller.
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 I switched your
Melody.
Melody.
Hi.
So Melanie is joining us. She's actually from Gadine's last class, and she's auditing this class. So she's joining us and will be with us as often as she can. So good to have you, Melody, and obviously we try to have a participatory type session. So you'll need to read the text and participate with us. Fortunately, Melody, we'll actually go back through the entire lesson spectrum that we've gone through and tie everything together when we finish these last couple segments that we have left to do. And for your benefit, we are scheduled for 3 hours, but we do try to get done in 2 hours because I think 3 hours is really too much time to yapping. So we've been pretty good with that over the sessions. So thank you all for your time. You have a wonderful rest of the weekend. I do implore you, some of you do it and others don't. Anything that you have on your mind, call me up, send me an email, send me a text. Any angst that you have about your assignments that you're doing. Again, I cannot stress that what we're trying to do here is for you to learn something and for you to get better at what you do and for you to leave here. This is not a gotcha type of class. We're trying to see how much I could prove to you that you know nothing. I actually want to do the opposite. So please feel free, if you're having a challenge with an assignment that you're doing, to call me. Last thing before we go, I congratulated, I think she has left. I congratulated Blair, oh, she's back, so let me wait. Connecting to audio. Let's see if she gets connected. I think Blair uses her phone, so she's always dropping off. And Blair she's the one in Harbor Island, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay, so Blair, you're back with your phone. I was just calling your name and notice you are not here. I was praising you for the fact that a part of the research that you did for one of your assignments was that you actually went out and interviewed persons who were doing a particular type of business so that you can get information for your assignment. So we're gonna leave on this.
Congratulations.
That
Thank you.
as individuals, you want to be informed and you want to have an edge on other people. And one way to get the edge on other people is something we often miss. When you go on Google, whatever you find on Google, everybody else see that. So you ain't getting no edge. And you're superior to reading than other people. Everyone can read. But there is a form of information gathering in research. We call it primary research. Secondary research is what everybody's used to doing. They go grab a book, they go Google it. That's called secondary research because you are looking at what other people say it is. What other people have written down, and what you're looking at, everybody can find that. So it doesn't give you an edge. What gives you an edge is when you can talk to people and say, hey, you know something about this? What do you know? Give me your view on this. So if you go out, for instance, and you're puzzled about something, and you ask 10 people, what even people who are not experts, sometimes the best information collected in life are from people who are not experts, because many experts are fenced in by their knowledge.
Experiences.
They're boxed in by their schooling.
Mhm.
Or their learning or their education. They can't think outside of that. Some persons who are not boxed in will give you some information that you'll never get anywhere else. So as Blair did, you go and you say, look, I'm doing a question on property management. I'd like to putting a portfolio together. What would you do if you were doing this? Why are you doing what you're doing? And you actually get personal experiences from people to add to the research that you're doing on something. Just wanted to add that point to you. And even I'm here as a resource. A lot of people, because of their experiences, see a lecturer or a teacher or whatever. I see myself as a coach. So my job really is that if you're doing an exercise, and you call me, I ain't here to help you, baby. Go figure that that's not what I'm here for. If you're doing an exercise and you feel you're running into a roadblock, or you don't understand something, or you need some help with something, that's what I'm here for. You've done the right thing because you're trying to do an excellent job, and you use resources to get jobs done. Every resource you can find to get a job done, it behooves you to use those resources. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and gird yourself for a lot of work over the next 2 weeks, because we're going to be missing a session on Saturday. So you're going to be getting quite a bit of work. The work itself is the fire that sharpens the sword. So, welcome it with open arms.
So,
my birthday
can
weekend
I
too,
just
so-
be added to the group, and can I get the information?
Have Melody, did you get a link that you needed to click on to register for the class? Because we have a class, an online class where all the assignments are, the class material, and on and on. Did you get a link to that?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so I'll send you the link. And Crystal, could we have a chat, because there's still some kind of issue with your link. We have to fix that. By the way, Melody, while you're on the call, I think your email address is not a Gmail address, right?
No, it isn't. I have one though.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yes.
Could you use that, please? Your Gmail address.
Sure.
That will work a lot better.
Okay.
Than the one you have. Your Gmail address. But you have my cell number?
No, I do not.
It's 557-1162.
557-1162.
Yes.
Okay.
And just call me or text me, and I'll send you the link separately, because I know the institute is supposed to send you the link for registration. And the rest of you, all folks, have a wonderful rest of the week, and take good care of yourselves.
Thank you.
Goodbye, everybody. Have
Have
a
a
great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everyone.
And
Bye-bye.
don't underestimate the amount of information you need to cover in lesson 9. It is a lot of stuff.
It is a lot.
The persons who have an accounting background have a little bit of an advantage, because accountants tend also to understand risk as well, and even operations. But for those of you who have not been sort of buried in that world, you really want to pay attention to the contents of chapter 9, because that is powerful stuff. All right, take care.
Bye-bye.